MicroBrewr Podcast, Session 27.
Welcome to MicroBrewr Podcast, going deep to get inside the craft beer industry and inside the heads of people who work there. Here's your host, Nathan Pierce.
Welcome to MicroBrewr Podcast. We talk about everything craft beer related with a focus for people looking at starting their own microbreweries or wanting to take their existing breweries to the next level. I'm your host, Nathan Pierce. Thanks again for listening this week, everybody. I really appreciate you. It's really neat knowing that there are people out there who are interested in this, the same thing that I'm interested in too. I think it's really neat that I get to talk to brewers and brewery owners every week, and I hope that I'm asking questions that you like hearing the answers to. So if you're enjoying this too, let me know. Leave a review in iTunes. I'd really appreciate that. I look at all the feedback, see for ways that I can improve the show. It really helps for searches too, for people who are trying to find awesome beer podcasts such as this one. So if you want to find MicroBrewr on iTunes, we have a link at microbrewery.com/iTunes. And another way to leave me feedback, let me know that you like what's going on, or let me know ways of improving, is with comments on the website. So we have show notes for this specific episode at microbrewery.com/session27. That's microbrewer.com/session27. There'll be show notes and other resources of all the good things we talk about in this episode. In this episode, I talk with Brett Tate from Dust Bowl Brewing Company in Turlock, California. Brett has sort of an all-American small town story that he's telling with his beer and his brewery. His parents and grandparents came from Oklahoma. They left the Dust Bowl, totally just loaded all the stuff up on their car and made their way to California. And Brett played baseball in college and coached high school sports, and he really wanted to tell his family story, and he's doing that through his brewery. The whole Dust Bowl Brewing Company brand reflects that story. And they're revitalizing this small town, Turlock, California. It's just a small little valley town in California's Central Valley, the San Joaquin Valley. They started with a small brewery, then they opened a restaurant, and they're getting ready to expand to a larger brewery. So they have tons of awesome stuff going on. He has tons of great advice. I hope you get a lot out of this one. Here's the interview. Hey, Brett, I introduced you to the listeners. Let's take a few minutes, and you can tell us more about you and your brewery.
Yeah, well, my name's Brett Tate, and owner-founder of Dust Bowl Brewing Company in Turlock, California. Brewed our first batch of beer on Mother's Day of 2009. My brewmaster is Don Oliver. He was the 2006 Samuel Adams Longshot homebrew national winner of the competition. And so he then attended UC Davis Brewing School, and we got started in 2009, in the spring of 2009. Started brewing and sold our first batch of beer commercially in June or July of 2009.
I wanted to actually ask you about Don Oliver because you mentioned him, and I was reading about him on the website. He was a helicopter mechanic for the Marines. My cousin was actually a helicopter mechanic. I shouldn't actually say because I think he was in the Army. If he was in the Marines, he's going to be totally pissed that I said it was the Army. So how did you find somebody with such good credentials? I mean, I always hear having a mechanic on staff is super helpful to just like figure out when you have troubles with the brewing equipment, and obviously brewing school helps.
Yeah, he's a perfect mix. How did we found each other? I wanted to start my own business, had this entrepreneurial drive inside of me. I actually taught for 20 years in public education, high school level, teacher and a coach. And I realized at some point I wasn't going to be able to do it for 35 years. So I was looking for something else. I wanted to start something while I had the energy and the capital to do so. So I met him on a blind, I cold called him. His picture was in the paper for winning that national contest. And so we hooked up, we talked, we said, this is a match. And his dream was to have a brewery, and mine is journey. And here we are, essentially 6 years later. But like I said, we're officially 5 years old.
I'm kind of excited to have you on today because you're the first brewery from California that I've interviewed. And I was born and raised in Hollister, California. Joe Shellerud interviewed Hen House from Petaluma before, but you're the first one that I've talked to from California.
I love it.
So tell us about Turlock, California.
Well, Turlock is not unlike any other valley town. It's an agriculturally based town of about 70,000 people now. When I was growing up in this town, it was about 30,000 people. So I am 52 years old, so that gives you an indication of the growth. It's doubled in size since I was in high school. We have a university in town. It's a state university, Cal State Stanislaus. That's where I attended college and played baseball there. It's a great town. It was once known for having the most churches per capita in the world. It's now since not on that list, but it was in the Guinness Book of World Records at one point.
Incredible. When was that?
This was back in the 70s, 80s, wow. Probably more like the 70s. But when I was growing up in this town, I never even had imagined something like this being successful. But the people of Turlock and the surrounding Central Valley have responded to craft beer it's amazing. I didn't know it was going to be like this.
So tell us about your growth a little bit as a company. Well,
we started with this 10-barrel system, so growth is a tough thing. We were going to put it into a pub type setting, but then we realized, hey, are we going to be able to make consistently high quality beer? And we didn't really have an answer for that, so we went safe and we put it into a condo. The one thing about the condo unit, it's in the industrial zone of Turlock, and they would not allow retail sales, so we were always just wholesaling beer for the first couple of years. Once we opened up our restaurant and we gave our company a face where people could actually see what we were trying to do, and the brand that we were about and the story that we wanted to tell, we started to see a huge increase in sales. And we also signed on with a distributor here in the valley, and they got our beer out there really well. It's called Delta Sierra Distribution. We now have 4 distributors in Northern California, and they're all doing very well with our beer.
How does that work out with 4 distributors? Do they all have their own really small regions?
Yeah, they take counties. So, we just signed on with Morris Distribution in the Bay Area, and they take the city of San Francisco, Sonoma, Napa, Mendocino, and Marin County, and actually part of Lake County. So that's where their distribution area is. We have a distributor in Auburn, California, Musseter, and they take Sacramento, Yolo, El Dorado, Placer, Nevada, Sierra, and parts of Solano County. So we have a distributor in Fresno, Donagy. They're a bud house, and they take Tulare, Kings County, Madera, and Fresno. And then our local distributor is a bud house, Delta Sierra, and they take Merced, Stanislaus, San Joaquin, Mariposa, Tuolumne, Amador, and part of Alpine County. So we got some good range here, but we're at the tip of our capacity. I mean, we're at capacity right now, and we're a year away from building the new, having the new brewery up and running. We're about a year away.
So you can't really sell to any more distributors at this point until you open up a new brewery.
Yeah, you're correct. We try to self-distribute a little bit in the East Bay and South Bay, and we really would like to hit Central Coast, but it's just really difficult for us to get there, and we just don't have the beer. So we're struggling to provide our current distribution network with beer.
Well, Central Coast would be cool. That's where I'm at.
I know.
Do you have any advice for people on selecting a distributor?
You have to meet these people. They're in it for to make money as well, and it has to be a partnership. There's distributors that have a lot of brands that they have to sell, and so you have to be careful. You have to get a good feel for, are they there for you? Do they believe in your beer? Are they going to push your beer? Are they going to put it up toward the top of their portfolio, or is it going to settle at the bottom? And so that's one aspect of it. The other one is I feel like you need to have feet on the ground. You need to be at all of the events in the areas that you want to sell beer, and you need to be present with the retailers as much as possible.
So it's not good enough to just ship your beer off to the distributor. You got to send your own person out to the places where it's being sold.
Yes. Nobody knows your beer like you, and nobody has a passion for it like you. So you really have to have your own advocate for the beer. Sales is a huge part of it. So you can make all the beer you want, but you got to get it to the people,
Well, thanks for broadening the picture about your brewery. Now I want to get focused, but first I'm wondering if Dust Bowl Brewing has core values, core words, or operating principles that you work by.
Yeah. My background is coaching, so I try to get the best players, and the players for me are all the brewery staff, and obviously the restaurant staff, and even in our management team. If you have really good players and you inspire them and coach them and give them what they need to do what they do well, you're going to be successful. So that's what my role is. I'm a little bit different than a lot of brewery owners. Most of them are brewers themselves, and I would suggest that if somebody was starting a brewery, I would suggest that you don't start a brewery unless you are one of the brewers. It's a different concept that we have. I'm investing in people, and that's what I do. And it is a little scary because you don't do everything yourself, but if you can see through that and get the best people to do what you need them to do, and give them what they need to do it, then I think you're going to be successful.
That's awesome. That's exactly what I want to do. I've been planning to start a brewery, and I've drafted a business plan, and the most I've really done is just helped a couple friends homebrew 5-gallon batches in their backyard. I'm not planning on being the brewmaster either. I want to let somebody else who's an expert take that on, and then I'd rather handle sort of the back end overall administrative stuff.
Right, and that's basically what I do. And now, is that common in the industry? I don't think it is.
I don't think so either.
But it's doable. So that is a model that you can do. There are a million different models. Did we do it the right way? I don't know, but we are surviving and we are thriving. So obviously we've done some things right along the way.
Definitely. Well, you've been open for 5 years, so I know you've had time to do some things wrong too. I like to go real deep, Brett. So tell me, what's the biggest mistake you've ever made as a brewery owner?
Wow. That's a good one. You're always looking for more capacity. So where we put our brewery currently is where we've been from day one, and we have struggled with expansion. We've struggled with understanding what goes into expansion. How much energy, time, and money, and but it's not unlike most micros. I mean, they're going through the same problems, growing pains. If you're doing it well, you have growing pains, and so I think it's common in the industry. We should have looked at another facility probably to start with, but you don't ever know, how big you're going to get. I would say that, you just have to be really careful of where you put your brewing system, and look at what you want it to look like in the future. So, because any moves can be very painful, and like I said, expansion is probably where we've made our biggest mistakes.
So, if you could start your brewery over again, is that something that you'd do differently to do it better?
Well, yeah. Well, knowing what size system that we purchased is a 10 barrel, I would have gone with a bigger system if we were just wholesaling beer. The 10 barrel's fine if you're going to stick it into a brew pub, but we were not confident about food, or we were not confident about our ability to brew consistently good beer. So we did what we had to do. You know what I mean? Was it a perfect thing? No. But we did what we had to do, and it's worked out so far.
I don't want to put words in your mouth. Let me see if I understand. You weren't really sure that you could do a brew pub, and you weren't really sure that you could do packaging beer either, but you went for it.
Pretty much.
Nice.
Yeah, it was. Hey, it was a hobby, and it turned into a corporate type look. So, and when we get this new brewery online, it's going to be very. We're still going to be dedicated to the craft, but it's going to be on a larger scale. So,
where did you get your brewing equipment from? Tell us about your system and your fermenters.
Our system came from Premier Stainless out of San Marcos, California, via the slow boat from China. It's Chinese-made equipment that's fabricated in San Marcos as well. It's worked out great. It's been a workhorse for us. Obviously, we're getting ready to brew our 1,000th batch of beer on this system. So I would, without any problems whatsoever, a couple of pump issues, but nothing big. So we've been pounding out beer for 5 years, and quite a bit of it, and so that's where that came from, our current system.
You started with the 10 barrel, and you're still working off of the 10 barrel system?
Correct. There are those nano breweries now, where you're seeing 7 barrel batches and maybe even less. And they have a retail setting where people can come by and get a hold of their beer. To be honest with you, the best way I think is that where the brewery staff has connection to the public is the best way you can possibly grow your beer making opportunity. We have always struggled with our restaurant being separate from the brewery operation. We've struggled getting that connection with brewer to consumer. So when we get our new one up and running, we're not going to have that issue at all.
So what's the best idea you've ever had for your business?
Hiring my brewer, Don Oliver. The best idea, oh man, I don't know if there's one. This is a marathon. This is it's not for sissies. Let me just put it that way. So basically, you wake up every day and you make decisions, and you hope that they're the best ones that you can make at that point in time based on the information that you have. So I don't think there's been one. I just think it's a grind, to be quite honest with you. I mean, if you're looking for a quick fix or quick return on your money, do not go this way. Because it is a money, capital is essential to keep going to the next day. That's what we've found.
Well, it's okay to say that your best idea was hiring your brewer. I think Chris Goulet from Birdsong Brewing Company, I think that was what he said too, because he was talking about they were just so impressed with their 21-year-old genius brewer that they hired him. They're in Charlotte, North Carolina, and they were on episode 17, if anybody wants to listen to that one.
Sweet. Yeah, I mean, that's how it all got started, so that was the best decision. And then, we've had to make numerous decisions after that. Now, and yeah, the story, so we haven't even talked about the story of Dust Bowl. We didn't make it up, and it holds itself. It's a really strong brand, I think. The brand has potential to go anywhere it wants to go. The Dust Bowl, my dad's family, the Tates, they came out in 1936 in a Model A, just like the Grapes of Wrath. I don't know if you've ever read the book by John Steinbeck.
I think I was supposed to read the book, but I watched the movie instead.
There you go. So that's what my family looked like. They were Okies from Oklahoma. They came west in search of a new beginning, a new start. They were laborers, basically, pickers. They picked beans and cotton and fruit and pitched melons. And so that's how we ended up right here in Turlock. And that's where the story comes from. They were driven out of Oklahoma by the Dust Bowl and the Great Depression in the 1930s. So basically so that was probably the first big decision. What do we call this place? And that's what came to me. I'm trying to tell this story, keep the story alive through beer, basically.
So that's interesting. That I'll see if I could segue this up to my next question. Lots of times you have great stories of families migrating west towards, of course, we could say, because we grew up in California, the promised land, and like the family finally succeeds out of the Dust Bowl. Has there been a moment when you realized that you finally succeeded in this brewery?
Just recently, like I said, you grind this thing. I mean, you grind. And then you look up and you go, oh my God, look what people have to remind me. Michelle, my marketing guru, she reminds me sometimes of, hey, look where we were 2 years ago and look where we are now. I don't really look at it that way. I'm more of that coach guy, where I just every day you got to have that little plan and then you try to do the little things and then it gets you to where you want to go. But when you look up, and you see, I think just recently it hit me. that we're on our way. We made it. I think we're taking this next really big step with the new brewery from the ground up, and that signifies success to me. People have responded to the beer and the brand.
So what's been your favorite memory since opening the brewery?
I don't really have one. I just feel like, I enjoy the city of Turlock has been revitalized, the downtown, by our restaurant. There is a lot of activity downtown that never used to be here, especially on our side of the tracks. There's businesses on the east side of the tracks it was kind of vibrant over there, and then the west side was dead where we are, and now it's taking off, and it's going to surpass probably the east side now of downtown. That's neat to look at. That's a nice little memory. But just the Turlock enjoying, the surrounding communities enjoying the restaurant, seeing their faces, and that's probably the best thing that I can imagine. They're actually it's a social gathering place. Yeah, and then we've added a beer culture, and we continue to try to add that beer culture to the Central Valley because it was really void of craft beer.
That's
cool.
cool.
I think we've done a good job there.
It sounds like you're feeling the most pride in just contributing to your community and helping your community grow.
That's probably, that's it. I mean, that's what it's about.
So what could you tell an aspiring home brewer? They want to start a brewery, but what's the most important thing that they can start doing tomorrow?
They just need to learn about business. You can be a great brewer, and then you need to have a really keen understanding of business and how it works. Otherwise, I would just use my brewing talents for somebody else. If you don't have a keen sense of business or somebody around you that can help you with that aspect of it, I wouldn't venture that way.
Now we have a question from one of our listeners, Peggy Pierce. It's actually my mother. She asks, is your water purified?
We currently dose our water. It's city water. We, at the new brewery, we will be putting in a reverse osmosis system, and then doing additions to profile the water how we want it for each beer. So to answer her question, currently we are not ROing, reverse osmosis, but we are going to be doing that at the new brewery.
And then you add certain minerals in and things depending on which style of beer you're brewing.
Correct.
Incredible.
Yeah, there's a lot of science in this thing. So, but we started with reverse osmosis at our original, but we didn't have a system that was efficient, and we felt like we were wasting water, and we didn't want to do that. So we took the city water and we profiled it ourselves, and it's working. But we would prefer to start with reverse osmosis water at the new brewery.
I've heard of breweries filtering their water, but I've never heard anybody specifically mention reverse osmosis. So when you said about the inefficient system, I was thinking when somebody has reverse osmosis in their home, I've heard that it actually wastes twice as much water as comes out of the faucet. Is that the case with a system like you're going to have?
Ours will be a little more high-tech than that. Yeah, but I'm not sure right now of the volume. We will be using that water. Actually, what's left over from the reverse osmosis process is not usable. It's highly concentrated. So we will not be using that, but we're only using it for product water, what goes into the product. not doing that for all of our water. Does that make sense?
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, of course, running a factory like you're doing takes a lot of water for just washing the floors and washing your hands and anything else.
Yeah, or, CIPing, cleaning vessels and all those types of things.
Oh,
we
right.
will know. So anyway, it's all being worked out with the city, and so we're going to be online with that at the new brewery.
Well, now it's time for happy hour. The next set of questions are a little bit lighter. We're going to get to know each other a little bit better, have some fun, and get inside the industry. Are you ready, Brett?
Sure.
Cans or bottles?
Well, the new wave is bottles. Cans. I'm sorry. It seems to me that people are that's, if you don't do both in the future, you're probably missing the boat. We will eventually get to cans, but we're not going to do that right off the bat at the new brewery. So we're going to stick with bottles for right now, and then we will introduce cans as we move on.
What's the most challenging beer you've ever made?
Wow. Well, we made our beer called Soul Crusher. It was a 13% big malt bomb with some hops, some hop additions as well, and it actually broke our lauter ton.
Wow!
It actually vacuumed, and I mean it just the sheer weight of the grain load was a little bit too much. So we got it fixed, but that was our own fault. We overdid it. So the Soul Crusher crushed us.
Did the name come after that happened?
No. It was given its name prior.
Oh, wow.
And then it held true to form.
Be careful how you name those beers from now on.
Exactly.
Don't name anything like Fire or Flood or something like that.
Exactly. So Soul Crusher, Soul Crusher was the one.
If you're going to make a 5-gallon batch at home this weekend, what kind of beer would you make?
Wow. It's interesting. Just a good old IPA, just a go-to. I think that's what I would do.
Tell me one beer style that you think will be gaining more attention.
Well, you've seen all the IPAs. We just last night brewed our first batch of Dump Truck. It's going to be a 15%, if it turns out the way we want it to, IPA.
Wow,
so
brutal.
it'll be a quad IPA or a mega IPA. We'll call it a MIPA.
15% ABV and like 2,000 IBUs or what?
So, I don't know. Yeah, it's up there. So, just extreme. But, that's for craft beer. As far as like what's the new thing, that's the $1 million question. That is. You're searching for that niche that hasn't been hit yet. So I don't know the answer to that.
Sounds like you guys are putting your money on the mega IPA.
That's only for certain consumers. So
yeah, totally. You can't drink very many pints of a 15% beer.
No. So we're continually trying to figure out what might be the next thing, or while you continue to produce the beers that you think you've nailed, recipe wise and consistency, you're always searching for the next beer.
Can you suggest a book for our audience that will help them succeed in opening a brewery?
Yeah, I read Brewing Up a Business by Sam Calgione, owner of Dogfish Head. He has two. One is called Adventures in Beer, and the other one is Adventures in Entrepreneurship. He always has a good read. And then I read Starting Your Own Brewery by Ray Daniels. Those were good. I'm sure Beyond the Pale by Ken Grossman has tons of great information in it, but I just haven't read it yet. From Sierra Nevada.
You like to read?
I read when I feel like I need to. And so, because I wasn't as astute about craft beer at the time that I started the company, or I was thinking about starting the company, I read quite a bit at that time just to gain some knowledge that I needed, I felt.
Well, give us one last piece of advice for someone who they just brewed the first batch at their new brewery, and then we'll close up the brew house for the night.
Make sure you love what you're doing and you have a passion for it. Be resourceful and be open to learning. Share information and try to gather as much information as you can in the industry.
Well, it's been really fun, Brett. Thanks for the fun times. Thanks for sharing your tips on starting and operating a successful brewery. So tell us how we can stay in touch with you, and then we'll set this episode aside to ferment.
Well, I'm easy to get a hold of. You can get a hold of me through info@dustbowlbrewing.com, and it'll get to me. Anybody that wants to give me a shout out, I'll be glad to help you out and answer any questions I can. And I hope to see the craft beer community and in Turlock one day, coming by our restaurant, and then our new brewery that'll open up in 2015 in the summer of, and hopefully we'll get some visitors.
Thanks again, Brett Tate, for being on MicroBrewr Podcast. That was a lot of fun. Thanks for sharing your stories and your advice about starting and operating a successful brewery. I had the opportunity to see Dust Bowl Brewing at Smoke on the River barbecue competition and beer festival in Sacramento, California a couple weeks ago. And Scott Chaffee was there. He's a sales manager, and got a little picture of him and I together in front of the taps, and I put that up on the show notes page. So check that out. I really look forward to checking out Dust Bowl Brewing in person sometime, because I finally interviewed a brewery in my own home state. So thank you all listeners. Also, I really appreciate the comments on the website and the emails coming in and the tweets and comments on Facebook and all that stuff. So hit me up anytime if you have any questions about starting a brewery or any suggestions for the show. MicroBrewr Podcast is on Twitter and Facebook at MicroBrewr. There's a contact form on the website at microbrewer.com/contact. And I'm on Untapped at Nathan Pierce, Pierce. And don't forget to subscribe in iTunes or Stitcher. And please check out Dust Bowl Brewing Company and let Brett Tate know that you appreciated him sharing his information and advice on starting a successful brewery. You can find links to get in touch with Brett Tate and Dust Bowl Brewing Company and the other great resources that we talked about in this episode at the show notes for this episode. They're at microbrewer.com/session27. So be sure to go to the show notes, microbrewer.com/session27. Brett had a few different suggestions on books that'll help you start a successful brewery. And he pointed out that Sam Calagione's book, Brewing Up a Business, actually has two different titles. The first edition was Brewing Up a Business, Adventures in Entrepreneurship, from the founder of Dogfish Head Craft Brewery. And then the second edition was Brewing Up a Business, Adventures in Beer, from the founder of Dogfish Head Craft Brewery. So they changed up the subtitle a little bit from the first one to the second one, and I have links to each one, the first edition and the second edition, in the show notes. And so those are also updated on the book list, the book recommendations page, and you can go to that directly at microbrewer.com/booklist. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, support your local brewery, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to MicroBrewr Podcast with Nathan Pierce. We'll see you right here next time at microbrewer.com.
If you want more resources for starting a craft brewery, check out microbrewer.com, microbrewer.com. If you want to become a Cicerone certified beer server, check out beerexamschool.com for free study guide and flashcards for the certified beer server exam. beerexamschool.com.